Beneath the world's vault, where the echoes of myth braid with the winds of history, 5 places rise like beacons for humanity's imagination. Mount Olympus, throne of storms and of measure, calls from its white ridges to teach us why order and courage need each other. At the border of shadows, Hades opens unseen gates, rivers carrying memories, oaths weighed on the scale of truth, a silence speaking louder than any cry. Across the seas, in the sword-bright north, Valhalla rings with clashing shields and the footsteps of Valkyries. There, glory does not end, it rehearses for the great day. In the lofty east, Mount Kunlun stands like a pillar of light between heaven and earth, with hanging gardens, jade streams, and paths where footsteps grow lighter than thoughts. And in the middle of the ocean, Rapa Nui keeps watch with the stone eyes of its Moai, a small island with a civilization's memory, an open sky museum where the wind recites the lesson of balance between aspiration and resources. These are not merely points on a map, they are maps of the soul. Olympus teaches measure, Hades, the price of truth, Valhalla, dignity before the end, Kunlun, the thirst for transcendence, Rapa Nui, responsibility for what we build. Together they form a compass for ages, the north of courage, the south of memory, the east of ascent, the west of rest. Between them stand we, wayfarers with long dreams. Set out with us on this journey. We will climb cloud steps to Olympus, descend beyond the veil into Hades, ring shields in Valhalla, breathe beneath Kunlun's jade pine, and count the stars resting on the shoulders of Rapa Nui's Moai. We seek not legends alone, but keys for the present. How to be more just, more brave, more attentive to what endures. Where myth touches history, our path ignites. Beneath the newborn sky, a thin veil of mist drifts across the serrated skyline. The wind strikes the rock, and for a heartbeat seems to breathe. In that breath of the mountain, the Greeks placed an invisible palace, Olympus, the dwelling of the gods, not carved from marble but from story, not measured in columns but in thunder. From the summit of Myticus, almost 3,000 meters high, the world opens like an amphitheater, and above it, in the mind's eye, another amphitheater, celestial. There Zeus lifts the thunderbolt, Athena plots wars and wisdom, and Apollo tunes the lyre of time. Our journey begins there, not merely toward a mountain, but toward the heart of a civilization that projected its divinities onto Greece's crown and drove its hopes like iron into stone. Mount Olympus is Greece's highest massif, its Myticus peak reaching 2,917 meters, an altitude that, for the ancients, put the clouds on doorkeeper duty. Straddling Macedonia and Thessaly and facing the Thamaic Gulf, the mountain served as both geographic landmark and mythic axis. For sailors, its ridges were a compass. For poets, a rostrum. For believers, a ladder. In Homer and Hesiod, Olympus ceases to be a mere summit and becomes the supreme metropolis of a world governed by gods with human passions, traveling ceaselessly between heaven's firmness and the dust of Greek roads. If we sketch a timeline, the founding of Olympus does not come from a formal charter like Rome's, but from a tacit pact among poets, singers, and communities. In the 8th–7th centuries BCE, oral tradition settles into verse. The Iliad and the Odyssey pin the gods home to the map, while Hesiod's Theogony orders the divine genealogy. There, Olympus becomes council and capital. The gods receive addresses, functions, hierarchies, and humans receive a language for fate. No wonder the Muses, daughters of memory, have abodes on Olympus. Memory is the invisible architect of that city. At the mountain's foot lies a terrestrial counterweight, Dion, the Macedonians' sacred settlement, a whole city of sanctuaries dedicated to Zeus and the Muses. Here, in the plain that always sees the crests, people offered sacrifices, staged festivals, commemorated royal victories, and sought divine favor for campaigns, harvests, and sea voyages. Dion thus became the earthly mirror of Olympus. Below, the altars, above, the thrones. Below, the theater, above, the celestial song. Below, the smoke of sacrifice, above, cloud. The peak of Olympus, as a civilizational symbol, overlaps with the Greek world's maturity. In the archaic and classical periods, the polis asserts itself. Athens raises the Parthenon. Sparta sharpens its discipline. Corinth negotiates the seas. And at Olympia, in the Peloponnese, not on Olympus, athletes run for Zeus's glory. In the north, Macedonian kings, Philip II, Alexander, appeal to the same pantheon, invoking the Olympians before great battles. At Dion, festivals in honor of Zeus and the Muses strengthen religious and cultural cohesion in a Macedonia preparing to step beyond the Balkans and embrace the world. This is the age when Olympus commands the imagination. The gods arbitrate tragedies, judge speeches, and witness oaths sworn by Zeus Olympios. What sort of society places its divine capital on a peak? One that turns geography into grammar. Temple and marketplace, gymnasium and harbor, theater and tavern. Each is a declension of the same sentence. Humans seek meaning, and meaning ascends. Greek art, from red figure pottery to bronze sculpture, does more than depict gods. It translates them into human gestures. A pensive Athena, a hurrying Hermes, a laughing Dionysus with a cup in hand. Philosophy, from Thales to Aristotle, sets questions in motion. Medicine searches for balance. Mathematics drafts the cosmos in lines and ratios. In all this, Olympus acts as a cultural imprint, a sacred brand legitimizing truths, laws, armies, and hopes. Step for a moment into an ordinary day of Olympus. At dawn in the foothill villages, priests prepare offerings, incense, warm bread, new wine. Between temples, merchants lay out ceramics, oil and olives, musical instruments, textiles from the islands. Children race with strings, soldiers drill in courtyards, and elders recall lightning splitting the sky on a summer night, a sign Zeus had listened. In Dion's theater, tragedies and comedies stage. In the mountain's shadow, the humans struggle with fate, hybris, the need for measure, the punishment of those who forget they are mortal. The city breathes sacred and profane alike. Above it all, Olympus presides, a granite dome over a cathedral of stories. Beyond ritual, Olympus is an archive of symbols. In the Iliad, gods ascend and descend, sometimes to tilt a battlefield's scales, sometimes to pursue their own feuds. That constant traffic between sky and soil asserts a Greek truth. The divine is not distant, it is near, involved, passionate. Hence, altars to Zeus crown mountaintops, dot cities, and stand by field edges. Hence, an oath sworn by Olympus invokes not only a heavenly witness, but the nearness of penalty. Hence, offerings to the Muses open poems, each verse a small ladder toward the great summit. Yet no capital endures forever, not even one of light. Olympus's decline is not the fall of a mountain, but the retreat of the gods from public life's center. Hellenistic philosophy, Stoics, Epicureans, first tempers mythic narrative, turning attention toward ethics, interiority, atoms. Rome then conquers and reinterprets. Jupiter dons Zeus, Minerva takes Athena, pantheons overlap, temples multiply. Finally, Christianity shifts the paradigm. The one God dwells not on a peak but everywhere, not in thunder, but in word. In the 4th and 5th centuries, imperial edicts suppress public pagan cults. Altars go cold, sanctuaries change hands, and Olympus gradually becomes legendary decor rather than the architecture of power. And still, retreat is not disappearance, but metamorphosis. Olympus enters Byzantine and Western letters, strides through the Renaissance as a symbol of classical harmony, returns in Romanticism as the metaphor of natural sublimity. In modern times, it becomes national park, biosphere reserve, and object of study for botanists, geologists, and travelers. Hikers tread carefully way-marked paths. On the map's margin, the guides mark the peaks: Myticus, Scolio, Stephanie, Zeus's throne. The mountain remains, yet the invisible city has moved inside us, into the way we describe storms, the way we fear lightning, the way we dream of ordering chaos. Consider the economy of Olympus, how belief becomes infrastructure. The Olympian cult sustained a network of temples, priests, craftsmen, artists, athletes, and musicians. Festivals drew pilgrims and with them merchants. Trade routes brought incense from the east, wines from the islands, oil from Attica, ceramics from Corinth. Even without a town hall at the summit, Olympus functioned as a city. Taxes in offerings, councils as oracles and assemblies, official communiques as decrees carved in stone. In Dion, paved streets, baths, theaters, and mosaic-floored houses showed how the sacred descends into daily life, turning farmers into pilgrims and pilgrims into citizens of a shared world. Of course there were tensions. Who speaks for the gods? The priest or the poet, the oracle or the general? What does it mean when lightning strikes a temple, wrath or weather? The Greeks slowly learned to hold myth and reason together, to consult the oracle and survey the roads, to sing to the muses and calculate eclipses. That productive tension generated the beauty of their civilization, a continuous dance between rock and idea. When we speak of Olympus's collapse, it is tempting to picture falling walls. But Olympus had no walls. It had words. Words do not collapse, they change. In place of Zeus, another name. In place of the altar, the pulpit. In place of tragedy, the sermon. Yet on stormy nights, people still stare upward with the same alloy of fear and fascination. Olympus's legacy is not just a corpus of tales. It is our reflex to seek meaning in heights, to climb in order to understand, to see from above in order to arrange the chaos. Today, as you ascend toward Mythica's and pause to catch your breath, you may feel the old double vibration, geology and mythology. Layers of limestone carved by time, layers of story laid down by centuries of singers. The mountain is an open book, each ridge a chapter. Stephanie, Zeus's throne. Scolio, the sky's edge. Prionia, the gate. Below you, Thessaly's plains. Far off, the sea. Within you still, the invisible city. Olympus is no longer a religion's capital, but it remains the capital of a feeling, that between human and heaven, a ladder exists. Each ascent repeats the ancient Greek gesture, not merely athletic but spiritual. We set our boot on a ledge of stone and, unawares, take another step into the story. Thus runs the history of the city Olympus, founded in verse, consolidated in ritual, expanded through art and commerce, challenged by philosophy, transformed by new faiths, rediscovered by hikers and scholars. It did not fall, it was rewritten. It did not vanish, it diffused into language, literature, and the way we imagine order. When we descend the paths and re-enter the noise of our age, we may carry with us Olympus's keenest gift, measure. Measure between daring and humility, ambition and its limits, hybris and balance. The true capital of the gods is not only above the clouds, it is in how we keep our promises, in how we rise after we fall, in how, with each step, we climb. Beyond the borders of the living world, where the sunlight fails to reach and time itself seems suspended, there stretches a legendary realm. In this kingdom of shadows, the air is heavy and still, pierced by the whispers of souls departed from the living. Endless plains of pale asphodel spread under a sunless sky, and bodiless phantoms wander these grey fields. This is Hades, the underworld of Greek mythology, and the final resting place of every mortal soul. From far away, one can hear the roar of an accursed river and the distant growl of a monstrous hound, signs that we are close to the gates of a realm at once fascinating and terrifying. The story begins at the dawn of mythical time, when the Olympian gods overthrew the old order of the Titans. After this cosmic victory, the three mighty brothers, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, drew lots to divide dominion over the world. Zeus became lord of the sky, Poseidon of the seas, and Hades was granted the domain beneath, the unseen realm of the dead. Thus, Hades's kingdom was symbolically established as a somber domain beneath the earth, at the margins of the known world. In the view of the ancient Greeks, it was one of the three great realms of existence, alongside the heavens and the sea. From the very beginning, Hades, the god, ruled as the absolute king of this land of souls, alongside his queen Persephone, whom he brought to his world through a fabled abduction carried out with Zeus's consent. Society in Hades bore little resemblance to mortal cities, yet the Greeks often imagined it in familiar terms. Poets described the house of Hades like a king's court, with a dark palace, guarded gates, and even ghostly orchards and herds. A dark mirror of the earth's bounty. Order was strictly maintained by Hades, an unyielding ruler who ensured that no soul ever left his realm once entered. harshly punishing any attempt to escape or defy the laws of death. Around his throne stood the judges of the dead, Minos, Iarchus, and Rhadamanthes, charged with dispensing justice in the afterlife, sending souls on the proper path according to the lives they had led. Initially, in Homeric belief, all the dead led the same shadowy existence. Later, the idea emerged that souls were judged and separated, with the virtuous kept apart from the wicked and punished accordingly. Thus, Hades' realm evolved from a simple gathering of shades into a complex vision of reward and retribution beyond the grave. Belief in Hades also directly influenced the funerary customs of the ancient Greeks. People buried their dead with care, placing a coin, an obol, as payment for the ferryman Charon, for it was believed that without this fare, the soul could not safely cross the boundary between life and death. Such rituals show how real and present the subterranean realm was in the everyday thought of the people of that time. Numerous sacred myths shrouded Hades' kingdom in an aura of mystery and reverent fear. One of the most important legends is that of Persephone, the daughter of the goddess Demeter, who was abducted by Hades to be his wife and queen. Demeter's immeasurable grief over her daughter's loss brought barrenness to the earth until a divine compromise was reached. Persephone would spend one part of the year in Hades and the other part on the surface, thus explaining the cycle of the seasons. The courage of ancient heroes was often measured by their descent into the underworld, katabasis. Orpheus, the mythical musician, dared to traverse the darkness of the depths to retrieve his wife, Eurydice, softening even the stone-cold hearts of Hades and Persephone with the music of his lyre. Orpheus earned permission to lead Eurydice back into the light, on the condition that he not look back at her until both had left the realm of the dead. Sadly, overcome by doubt, Orpheus broke that command and lost his beloved forever before leaving Hades' domain, leaving behind a bitter lesson about disobedience to the divine. Other daring mortals, such as Heracles or Odysseus, also dared to cross the threshold of the underworld, confirming that this realm was seen as the ultimate test of heroism. Hades was also the place where the souls of sinners paid their endless punishments for their misdeeds. Sisyphus was condemned to push a boulder up a hill forever, and Tantalus to suffer eternal hunger and thirst beneath fruits he could never reach. Examples of the gods' unforgiving justice in the hereafter. Such legends illustrate the moral values of the Greeks. Grievous sins earned eternal torment, while courage and virtue could offer the hope of a brighter existence in the land of the dead, like that of the Elysian fields. Though Hades as a place did not raise monuments or command trade empires like the cities of the living, Greek civilization still attributed to it a series of remarkable achievements through its influence on culture and thought. First and foremost, the vision of a structured and organized afterlife was a notable contribution of Greek imagination. Hades was divided into distinct regions, from the dark abyss of Tartarus for the worst evildoers to the sunlit Elysian fields for the virtuous, with the neutral stretches of the asphodel meadows for ordinary souls, and even special areas reserved for those consumed by. This segmented conception reflected the belief that merit and justice prevail even beyond the grave. In the classical era, philosophical schools and mystical cults, such as Orphism and the Pythagoreans, enriched these beliefs further, speaking of the judgment of souls, cycles of purification, and reincarnation. From a material perspective, Hades himself bore the epithet Pluton, the wealthy one, since the Greeks recognized that from the depths of the earth, his domain, came both fertile crops and precious metals. Thus, although feared as the god of death, Hades was also respected as the silent provider of hidden abundance beneath the soil. The Eleusinian mysteries, initiatory rites related to Demeter and Persephone, even promised their devotees the hope of happiness in the afterlife, soothing the fear of death with the promise of blessed renewal. The Greeks sometimes attempted to communicate with the world of the dead. At the Necromanteon on the banks of the Acheron River, regarded in antiquity as a gateway to Hades, pilgrims performed elaborate rituals to summon the shadows of the departed. The ruins of this oracle, discovered by archaeologists near the former lake Acherusia, seem to confirm these ancient practices. Today, however, the once dreaded waters of the Acheron have become a picturesque adventure destination, where tourists go rafting through spectacular gorges. What in the past inspired fear and veneration has metamorphosed in the present into a place of recreation, proof of how myth and reality can coexist and transform over time. Unlike the lost cities of antiquity, Hades' realm did not disappear in a physical sense. It always existed as an idea and a place in the collective imagination. However, belief in its power gradually waned as eras and religions changed. As Christianity spread throughout the Mediterranean world, the old gods and their realm began to fade from public consciousness. Hades, once a spiritual certainty for pagans, was replaced by new concepts of heaven and hell. In early Christian writings, the term Hades was used to denote the abode of the dead, but with a transformed meaning. It became more a temporary place of waiting for the last judgment. Christian law even speaks of triumph over the underworld, the moment when Jesus descends into the depths to free the souls of the righteous, a sign that in the new faith, Hades' power had been overcome forever. Meanwhile, the temples and oracles dedicated to the underworld were abandoned or destroyed, and the cult of Pluto was banned as the Roman Empire embraced Christianity. The gates of that ancient kingdom were shut not by some spell, but by the loss of people's faith in it. In this way, the fall of the mythical city of Hades can be seen as the moment it ceased to be nourished by human fear and reverence, becoming nothing more than a legendary relic in posterity's memory. Hades' legacy endures to this day, echoing from a mythical civilization that shaped humanity's ideas about life and death. Although the beliefs of ancient Greece have faded, the story of this underworld kingdom continues to captivate the imagination. In literature, art, and popular culture, Hades remains a symbol of the unknown beyond the grave, a blend of fear and curiosity. Its characters, from the dark god-king to the heroes who traversed his domain, appear in countless books, films, and even video games. The ancient imagery still speaks to us. Today, When we utter the name Hades, we think not only of the god and the legendary realm of antiquity, but also of the universally human idea of a place of final judgment and rest for souls. As our epic journey comes to an end, the sense of wonder persists. Looking back at the grim majesty of this mythic realm, we are invited to reflect on our own notions of life, death, and what might lie beyond. Hades, with its unseen gates and forgotten rivers, remains a powerful metaphor for the impenetrable mystery that has inspired so many generations. We close the gates of this journey with one last glance into the darkness, not with fear, but with reverence, knowing that legends have a life of their own, and as long as they are told, they never truly perish.
On the horizon, beyond the veils of the Aurora Borealis, a colossal hall emerges, bathed in the cold light of the realm of the gods. Its roof is made of golden shields that gleam like a polar sun, and its numerous gates are guarded by wolves under the keen gaze of an eagle soaring above. This is Valhalla, the legendary hall of the fallen heroes in Asgard, ruled by the god Odin himself, the final destination for Viking warriors who met their end on the battlefield. Prepare to embark with us on an epic journey. We will explore the grandeur, mysteries, and historical significance of Valhalla, this realm of the brave where glory reigns eternal. Through a cinematic narrative, we will live alongside its heroes, discover the legends that surround it, and witness its legendary decline, all in the spirit of a captivating Norse saga. Valhalla holds a central place in Norse mythology, its origins lost in the mists of the Viking Age. The earliest written testimonies of this hall of the slain appear in the Edda poems of the 13th century, which compiled much older oral traditions. Additionally, an anonymous 10th century poem, Eiriksmal, depicts Odin receiving the souls of fallen kings in Valhalla, evidence that this belief was alive during the Viking era. These sources show that the idea of Valhalla was well defined in medieval Norse culture, with roots running deep into the warlike beliefs of the Vikings. Only the bravest warriors could hope to reach Valhalla. It was believed that after death, the souls of those gloriously slain in battle were chosen by the Valkyries, Odin's warrior maidens, who traversed the battlefields to carry the worthy heroes to the great hall of the heavens. The Einherjar, as these chosen heroes were called, formed a brotherhood of the brave under Odin's own leadership. The life of their community was an idealized extension of the Viking ethos. Boundless courage, warrior camaraderie, and feasting in honor of heroic deeds. For the Norse, to die with weapon in hand was considered the most honorable end, and the belief in a paradisiacal realm like Valhalla made death in battle the most glorious fate possible. This idea of a warrior's paradise motivated generations of fighters, shaping how they lived, fought, and honored their fallen comrades. Chronicles of the era describe scenes in which a mortally wounded Viking warrior would desperately grasp his sword or axe so that his demise could be deemed in battle, hoping thereby to be chosen for Valhalla, Odin's magnificent hall in Asgard. Norse legends portray Valhalla not only as a refuge for heroes, but also as a training ground for the end of the world. It is said that Odin founded this great hall precisely to gather an army of chosen souls, meant to fight alongside the gods at Ragnarok. the apocalyptic battle in which heaven and earth will perish. According to tradition, Valhalla has no fewer than 540 gigantic doors, through which 800 warriors can march side by side, a hint at the multitudes of heroes gathered there and the massive exodus that will occur when the final day arrives. One vivid account of Valhalla comes from the poem Eiríksmal. In this skaldic lay, composed in honor of a fallen king in the 10th century, Odin is depicted rising before dawn to prepare for the arrival of distinguished guests in his hall. The god awakens the Einherjar and orders them to spread straw on the benches and rinse out the ale vats, and he bids the Valkyries to carry wine as if a prince were coming. Soon, a mighty noise is heard. The benches of the hall tremble under the footsteps of thousands of warriors, and the god Bragi asks in wonder if perhaps Baldur, Odin's lost son, is returning to Odin's halls. In fact, the clamor heralded the entry into Valhalla of King Eric Bloodaxe, along with 5 other Viking kings, received as honored guests by the All-Father. The scene in Eiríksmal accentuates Valhalla's heroic and exclusive nature. Only the most illustrious kings and warriors were welcomed with such pomp into the Hall of the Chosen. However, not all Vikings found their destiny in Valhalla. According to belief, those who died of old age, illness, or outside of battle went to the somber realm of the goddess Hel, a place devoid of the bright festivities of the heroic feasts. Valhalla was reserved strictly for those slain bravely, underscoring the profound distinction the Norse drew between the life of a warrior and that of ordinary people. Even among the fallen heroes, there were divided destinations. Some traditions say that the goddess Freyja received a portion of the warriors' souls in the fields of Folkvanga, while Odin claimed the other half in Valhalla. These mythological variations highlight how rich and nuanced the Norse vision of the afterlife was. Traditional accounts of Valhalla emphasize its architectural splendor and abundance. According to the prose Edda, the impressive hall had 540 doors, each wide enough for 800 warriors to pass through side by side. The roof was made of gleaming shields. The walls were adorned with spears, and inside, the long benches were covered with chainmail and armor, decor worthy of a celestial army. There the Valkyries served never-ending banquets. Among the fare was the enchanted boar Serimnir, whose meat was cooked every day and magically regenerated each morning, as well as inexhaustible vats of mead that refilled themselves for the hero's drink. Daily life in Valhalla was a blend of unending battle and celebration. Each morning, the Einherjar armed themselves and engaged in ritual combat with one another, fighting fiercely and proving their valor. No matter how brutal the encounters, by dusk, all those who had been slain were reborn, and their wounds healed as if by magic, so that everyone could celebrate together in the evening. At the nightly feast, the warriors once more dined on the inexhaustible flesh of Serimnir and drank the magical mead that flowed from the udder of the goat Hydrun, a legendary creature said to fill a whole vat each day with drink for Valhalla's champions. As music and the clamor of cups resounded, graceful Valkyries served the warriors brimming horns of drink, and Odin himself watched this ritual with satisfaction. The next day, the glorious cycle would begin again. Battle, death, resurrection, and feasting. A mythical routine that turned eternity into a daily heroic adventure. No epic story is complete without a grand finale, and Valhalla is no exception. According to Norse prophecy, the horizon of this world of glory darkens at Ragnarok, the final confrontation between the gods and the giants. When that time comes, Valhalla's gates will open wide and the entire host of heroes will surge onto the battlefield alongside Odin. Yet fate is sealed. Odin and his brave Einherjar will be felled in the devastating fight against the wolf Fenrir and the forces of chaos, perishing heroically as they lived. Legend says that after this apocalyptic battle, the sky and earth will sink into the sea, marking the end of an era. Valhalla will have fulfilled its purpose. The hero's sanctuary will fall silent, and the gleaming shields that covered its roof will lie in ruins, awaiting a new beginning of the world. In historical terms, Valhalla's disappearance as an article of faith came with the religious changes in Northern Europe. As Christianity spread through Scandinavia between the 9th and 12th centuries, the Old Norse pagan religion began to wane, and with it the belief in a hall of heroes in Asgard faded as well. By the 12th century, the cult of the Norse gods had been largely supplanted by the new religion, and Valhalla survived only in the poems and stories passed down through generations. Although some Vikings continued to recall these legends, the age of Valhalla as a living part of warrior spirituality had ended, giving way to a new vision of the afterlife. Despite belonging to a mythic world long past, Valhalla continues to endure through its cultural impact and the inspiration it has provided over the centuries. In the popular imagination, this shining hall has become a symbol of ultimate courage and the heroic reward after death. Countless works of art, literature, and music have invoked the name of Valhalla throughout time, from medieval chronicles to modern popular culture. For example, the composer Richard Wagner placed Valhalla at the center of his famous Ring of the Nibelung opera cycle. And in contemporary times, the concept appears often in films, video games, and fantasy literature, keeping the legend alive. In conclusion, the legend of Valhalla reminds us of humanity's immortal aspirations toward glory and honor. The story of this Hall of Heroes carries us into a world where death is not an end, but a new grand adventure. The image of a Valkyrie carrying a fallen warrior's soul across the rainbow bridge Bifrost to Valhalla's golden gates remains etched in collective memory. Whether we look to the mythic past or to our own ideals of courage, the echo of Valhalla still resounds, calling on us to dream of heroic deeds and of a place, even if imaginary, where they live on forever.
At the edge of the known world, where the eye meets the unknown, a mountain of legend rises, bathed in radiance and mystery. This is Mount Kunlun, the mythical peak from ancient Chinese chronicles, revered as the cosmic axis of the world and the abode of immortal divinities. Its dizzying summits appear suspended between earth and sky, while the mountain's base pierces deep into the heart of the earth, like a pillar supporting the vault of heaven. Golden mists swirl around its peaks, and the echoes of the winds carry ancient whispers, enhancing the aura of grandeur and enigma that has shrouded this place since time immemorial.
The legend of Mount Kunlun has survived millennia, resonating in the soul of Chinese civilization. We embark on an epic journey through the mists of time to explore the origin of this mystical paradise, the glory of its golden age, and the riddles of its downfall. Prepare to step into a world of myth and splendor, from its shrouded genesis to the tales of the immortals who dwelled there, and finally to its disappearance into the twilight of legends. Kunlun beckons us to unravel its secrets with hearts full of wonder and reverence. In ancient Chinese tradition, Kunlun shines as a beacon of origins. Its earliest mentions appear in foundational myths and early texts. For instance, it is said that Fu Xi and Nuwa, the progenitors of humanity, were joined in marriage on Mount Kunlun after a great flood devastated the world, in order to repopulate the earth with the blessing of the gods. To the people of antiquity, this sacred mountain was considered the cradle of their civilization and the source of the first river of the land, the Yellow River. Indeed, legends claim that from Kunlun flowed the world's rivers. Besides the Yellow River, 3 other mythical streams, the Red, the Black, and the Blue, Yangtze, all sprang from this magic mountain, coursing toward the 4 corners of the earth. The narration of Kunlun goes back thousands of years. Archaeologists have unearthed oracle bone and bronze inscriptions from the Shang and Zhou dynasties, 16th to the 3rd centuries BC, showing that people of those eras worshipped this mountain. During the Qin dynasty, 221 to 206 BC, the first imperial dynasty, the state's cosmological ideology cast heaven and earth as inhabited by deities, and Mount Kunlun became a symbol of the emperor, meant to unify the empire under a common sacred axis. Emperors presented themselves as mediators between heaven and earth, linked to Kunlun, the pillar of the world, to legitimize their rule. Thus, the myth took on a political value, making the people feel part of a unified whole under the cosmic umbrella of the mountain. Throughout history, numerous leaders and legendary heroes have been associated with Kunlun. King Mu of the Zhou dynasty, about 976 to 922 BC, is said, in mythic annals, to have journeyed to the very end of the known world to reach Mount Kunlun. Legend tells that upon arriving there with his 8 enchanted horses, Mu was awestruck by a splendid palace made of jade belonging to the mythical Yellow Emperor, Huangdi. On that fabulous journey, the king met none other than the Queen Mother of the West, the immortal sovereign of Kunlun, seeking the secret of eternal life. Although King Mu did not succeed in obtaining immortality and returned to the land of mortals, his story illustrates the prestige this mountain held in the collective imagination. Similarly, it is said that the legendary Yu the Great, founder of the Xia dynasty, received on Kunlun the essential teachings of governance from the Queen Mother herself, who bestowed upon him divine legitimacy and the secrets of wise rule. These semi-mythical accounts show how ancient society integrated Kunlun into its own history, seeing it as a guarantor of the mandate of heaven and world order. As cultures and beliefs evolved, so did the portrayal of the mountain in the collective mind. Initially surrounded by the aura of a wild, mysterious territory, Kunlun was gradually idealized as a heavenly paradise. The influence of Taoism, with its doctrine of immortality and ascetic retreats, transformed the mountain's image. From a possibly perilous frontier of the world, it became a realm of peace and eternal life. Some writings suggest that, with the syncretism of various traditions, a symbolic opposition crystallized between an eastern paradise, identified with the mythical island of Penglai, and a western paradise, embodied by Mount Kunlun. In essence, Kunlun came to represent the mythic west of China, the local equivalent of Mount Olympus, a peak that is both real and fabulous, hosting an entire pantheon of gods and immortals, a meeting point between mortals and celestial forces. Woven from threads of history and fantasy, the mythology of Mount Kunlun brims with astonishing stories of gods, immortals, and supernatural events. Kunlun is often envisioned as a place where heaven meets earth, an axis mundi whose summit is said to be occupied by the heavenly emperor himself. According to belief, the throne of the supreme deity, Taidi, lay at the mountain's topmost terrace, in the so-called Palace of Heaven. Kunlun was seen as a stairway to heaven. Any mortal, courageous and pure enough to climb to its peaks, would be instantly transformed into an immortal spirit. The idea that the mountain's apex continues into the celestial realm underscores Kunlun's sacred character, the bridge between worlds where a human might achieve immortality if deemed worthy. The most renowned inhabitant of Kunlun is Shiwangmu, the Queen Mother of the West. In antiquity, this goddess was depicted as a wild being with tiger's teeth and a leopard's tail, a mistress of plagues. Later, however, myth transformed her into a graceful sovereign, guardian of immortality. Her residence, set on the mountain's western flank, was a magnificent palace, protected by golden ramparts, gleaming like the setting sun. Behind those legendary walls, the Queen Mother hosted paradisiacal feasts for the immortals, spread along the shores of the Lake of Gems. Legend describes unheard-of delicacies served at these divine banquets: bear paws, monkey lips, and dragon livers, enchanted dishes meant only for celestial beings. In her palace garden grow the most precious trees in the universe, the peach trees of immortality, whose fruits grant unending life to those who taste them. It is said these peaches of longevity ripen extremely rarely, once every 3,000 years or even 6,000, according to some sources. Only upon completion of the sacred cycle does the Queen Mother invite her heavenly guests to the Peach Festival, a sumptuous banquet celebrated with music, dancing, and elixirs, to share the fruits of eternity with the gathered gods and heroes. One old story from the classic novel, Journey to the West, even recounts how the Monkey King stole these divine peaches, a mischievous feat that caused chaos in heaven and underscored how coveted the gift of immortality was. Around the Queen Mother of the West, an entire retinue of immortal beings revolves. The 8 immortals, Ba Xian, legendary Taoist heroes, were often imagined arriving at Kunlun riding on clouds, dragons or magic cranes, to pay homage to the goddess and participate in the celestial banquet she offered. This image of the queen borne on a phoenix and greeted by immortals on the mountain's heights became a frequent artistic motif depicted in traditional Chinese paintings and carvings. In addition to Shiwangmu, other important deities are found on Kunlun. Yu Shi, the Lord of Rain, has his abode on the mountain's slopes, from where he dispatches life-giving clouds over the world. On the highest peak, according to the classic of mountains and seas, Shanhai Jing, stands an altar of ancient shamans, 6 sacred sages, including one called Wu Peng, who hold the herb of immortality there. Moreover, later Taoist traditions portray Kunlun as truly a paradise of the Xian, enlightened humans who achieved immortality and live reclusively here under the Queen Mother's aegis. It was believed these adepts came and went at will, flying on the backs of cranes or dragons, free from the bonds of ordinary mortals. The realm of Kunlun abounds in fantastic fauna and flora, emphasizing its Eden-like nature. Its slopes were said to be populated by white tigers and tiger-featured creatures, symbols of the West, guarding the paradise's borders. Among its valleys and cliffs, one could glimpse deer and cranes of millennial age, animals considered symbols of longevity and immortality, often accompanying immortals in legends. The Queen Mother Shiwangmu herself is often described with a spotted deer as a pet, signifying her benevolent nature. In the pure air of the heights drift azure birds, Qing Niao, the goddess's divine messengers, of whom poets claim they brought inspiration to the chosen, carrying heavenly tidings into the hearts of receptive mortals. The vegetation on Kunlun is equally astounding. Sources speak of trees of jade and pearl, of a tree of life bearing miraculous fruits, and of multicolored magical fungi that grow only on this sacred mountain. Indeed, on Kunlun, every flower and creature takes on otherworldly qualities. Everything exists in a divine harmony, bathed in an eternal light, untouched by the decay of time. Mythology situates numerous fabulous events on Kunlun. Here take place heavenly banquets, miraculous transformations, and visits by daring mortals. This paradisiacal mountain left its mark on Chinese culture, being mentioned in both classical and popular literary works, from the poems of Chu Yuan in antiquity to the fantastic novels Legend of the White Snake or Journey to the West, all make at least a passing reference to majestic Kunlun. Each legend contributes to the mountain's aura of mystery and sanctity, reinforcing the belief that somewhere, in the far west, there is a place where heroes can attain immortality and gods walk the earth. Although Kunlun exists primarily in the realm of myth, tradition attributes to it the features of a paradisiacal civilization with achievements and order beyond mortal capability. In this city of immortals, there is no hunger, disease, or war, only abundance, knowledge, and eternal peace. It is said that on Kunlun's heights, the climate is always mild and pleasant, and the gods and sages who reside here live in harmony, far from the turmoil of the lower world. Legends speak of mysterious cities hidden among rocks and valleys, where former gods and heroes of antiquity have retired to enjoy the tranquility of eternity. Popular imagination describes architecture and gardens not of this earth. Palaces of jade and gold, raised on high terraces and bathed in the light of sunset. Plazas and courtyards paved with sapphire stones. Crystal-clear lakes and pavilions adorned with divine carvings. An imperial screen from the Qing dynasty, for example, depicted the western paradise on Kunlun, glistening with enchanted mountains and valleys, blue seas, hanging terraces and ethereal pagodas, against which the Queen Mother arrived on a phoenix, greeted by a retinue of immortals in a fairy tale scene. Such artistic renderings hint at the grandeur of the celestial architecture as imagined by mortals. Alabaster columns, gateways to heaven, and suspended gardens where every element of nature is elevated to the level of sacred art. A remarkable aspect attributed to Kunlun's civilization is the vast knowledge and spiritual power its immortal inhabitants are said to have acquired. It was rumored that the immortals of Kunlun amassed over time enormous quantities of esoteric books, magical artifacts, and alchemical formulas. In their mythical library would lie the secret of the elixir of immortality, of aligning the stars, and of the great mysteries of heaven and earth, a trove of sacred science inaccessible to ordinary mortals. There, Taoist masters and shamans were said to study the art of immortality and the secrets of the universe. Indeed, myths say certain chosen shamans could spiritually travel to Kunlun to learn rituals and receive wisdom directly from the immortals, then bring that knowledge back to the world of humans. Kunlun was seen as a divine academy, a site of spiritual pilgrimage where sages attained enlightenment. Hence emperors, alchemists and pilgrims in ancient China dreamed of this initiatory journey. The daily life of Kunlun's immortal inhabitants is imagined as full of art, celebration, and contemplation. In the paradise's plazas, instead of mortal merchants, one might envision sages conversing about the harmony of the cosmos, gods and immortals exchanging poetry and arcane knowledge. There were, according to legend, also ceremonial duties. For example, the aforementioned Peach Festival, where all the immortals gathered periodically. This event can be seen as the equivalent of divine Olympic Games or assemblies of the gods, strengthening the cohesion of the paradisiacal society. It was also believed that the immortals practiced refined arts, the music of the spheres, the ritual dance of graceful jade maidens, and strategic games like Wei Qi, Go, to sharpen their minds in eternity. In the vast gardens of the Queen Mother, celestial attendants such as the Blue Bird delivered messages and offerings, while alchemists prepared golden elixirs and incense brought from the stars. Beyond fantasy, the influence of the Kunlun myth on real Chinese culture was significant. Temples and shrines dedicated to the Queen Mother were erected at various lakes and mountains. One example being the temple on the shore of Lake Heihai in the actual Kunlun range, identified by locals with the goddess's jade pool. Emperors held rituals at solstices and equinoxes, invoking Kunlun's blessing for the empire's prosperity. Poets and artists, from Chu Yuan in antiquity to the poet-emperor Mao Zedong in modern times, who wrote a poem titled Kunlun in 1935, found inspiration in this symbol of cosmic grandeur and the dream of immortality. One could say that, in socio-cultural terms, the foremost achievement of Mount Kunlun was its power to unify the imagination and values of a people for millennia. It provided a spiritual axis around which rituals, artworks, morality, and collective aspirations were built. Unlike real cities, a mythical realm like Kunlun does not vanish into tangible ruins, but rather gradually fades from the horizon of mortal worlds. Chinese traditions offer both metaphorical and quasi-historical explanations for why today no one can set foot in the paradise of Kunlun. One cosmogonic tale suggests that, once upon a time, heaven and earth were joined by sacred pillars and ladders, mountains, trees, or columns that allowed free communication between gods and humans. However, as mankind strayed from the divine order, the gods decided to destroy these links of connection. The heavenly ladder was cut, the pillars that upheld the sky were cast down, and heaven was forever raised beyond the earth. This cosmic rupture, equivalent to humanity's expulsion from paradise in other cultures, explains why Kunlun became inaccessible. The direct connections between the human world and the realm of the gods were broken, and the gate to paradise closed. Even so, the legends did not stop at an allegorical justification. They placed tangible obstacles in the path of mortals, meant to guard Kunlun from uninvited eyes. At the foot of the mountain flows the famous weak river, Ruo Shui, an enchanted stream whose waters can support no boat or living being. The liquid is so light and insubstantial that any attempt to cross it is doomed, for travelers sink as if through air. In addition to this, magic water stretches the accursed region of moving sands, a wandering, treacherous desert, described as perpetually shifting, like a drifting dune sea that swallows anyone who ventures beyond the border. The combination of weak water and moving sands forms a natural defensive ring at Kunlun's base, an unseen moat and wall of the divine citadel. Only those versed in magical arts, powerful shamans or Taoists with supernatural abilities could, according to legend, overcome these obstacles and find their way to the paradise. For the ordinary person, Kunlun thus became invisible and unreachable, protected by the will of the gods. There are also historical, geographical approaches attempting to explain Kunlun's loss. In antiquity, as expeditions expanded, the Chinese pushed the supposed location of the mountain ever farther west, never truly finding it. Some placed it in the northwest, others south of the Western Sea, even at the center of the earth. Signs of the uncertainty and symbolic nature of these accounts. With each new map and each tribe explored at the fringes of the known world, the mysterious Kunlun seemed to retreat further. It was even speculated to identify it with real mountain ranges like the Hindu Kush or the Kunlun Mountains in Xinjiang, but nothing concrete ever confirmed the existence of the literal paradise. Countless adventurers tried to find it, but to no avail. Chinese emperors, who once sent envoys by sea to seek the island of Penglai, also looked westward, hoping to discover the sacred mountain. Yet the legend remained a legend. As one modern account notes, it is a legendary land that many have tried to locate, but so far, no one has succeeded in finding the mythological place. If it truly exists, it has remained hidden from mortal humans. Thus, Kunlun gradually disappeared from real geography and survived only on the mythical map. Some contemporary scholars point out that the Kunlun myth did not so much decline as it transformed and merged with other concepts over time. In later periods, Chinese mythology borrowed ideas from India and Central Asia, associating Mount Kunlun with Mount Meru, the five-peaked cosmic mountain of Hindu and Buddhist cosmology, considered the axis of the universe. In this process, Kunlun became more a universal symbol of the world's center and paradise than a precise physical location. In other words, once the horizons of knowledge expanded and real-world maps were charted, Kunlun retreated into the hearts and minds of people, remaining present as an idea and ideal. Its disappearance is not a collapse like that of Atlantis, but an ascension into the realm of myth. Kunlun endures not through ruins, but through stories, art, and belief. Looking back at Mount Kunlun, this fabulous axis mundi of Chinese culture, we realize it was more than a legendary place. It was an eternal symbol of human aspiration, the desire to reach the heavens, to live in harmony with the divine, and to transcend the limits of life. Kunlun's legacy is felt throughout Chinese history and spirituality. Its legends unified generations, inspired emperors and poets, and shaped religious rites and works of art. Even today, the name Kunlun evokes mystery and reverie. We find it in modern poems, in fantasy novels, and even in international pop culture, from Mao Zedong's verses to allusions in comic books and video games, a sign that the fascination for this myth remains alive. In conclusion, although Kunlun cannot be located on any contemporary map, It continues to exist on a higher plane, as part of humanity's imaginative heritage. The legendary Mountain of the Immortals reminds us of our thirst for knowledge and immortality, of the need to believe in something beyond ordinary life. Its story, with beginnings in the mists of time, with a golden age of gods and immortals, and with its mysterious disappearance, invites us to dream and forever seek the lost paradise. And as the sun sets in the west, our minds inevitably turn toward the horizon. Beyond the gilded clouds, Mount Kunlun perhaps still gleams, untouched, waiting for some brave and pure soul to find its hidden path among the stars.
The sun sets over the solitary silhouette of a distant island, Rapa Nui, known to the world as Easter Island, painting the sky in hues of gold and purple. On its volcanic shores, giant stone figures called Moai stand silent and unmoving, guarding the land for centuries. The Pacific wind carries whispers of legend among these statues, and the waves crashing against the rocks seem to intone an ancient, mysterious song. Local legends speak of an original paradise land named Hiva, from which the ancestors came, a paradise lost beneath the ocean waves. This is the story of Rapa Nui, an epic saga of courage, faith, and human ingenuity, beckoning us to step into a world forgotten by time. To the rhythm of distant drums, we imagine the first Polynesian canoes reaching the island's untouched shores. Destiny drove these voyagers across thousands of kilometers of ocean, carrying with them the seeds of a unique civilization. We prepare to journey into the past, to an era when this isolated little island was the center of a universe of myths and mighty achievements. We will witness the birth of an island kingdom, the raising of imagination-defying stone colossi. We will listen to the tales of gods and heroes, and we will contemplate the mysterious decline of a once flourishing culture. Let us embark on this grand adventure through the history and legends of Rapa Nui. The foundation legend of Rapa Nui is itself worthy of an epic poem. It is said that King Hotu Matua, after learning through a vision that his homeland Hiva would perish beneath the waves, dispatched 7 explorers to seek a new home across the sea. After a long journey, these scouts discovered an isolated but fertile island and summoned their king. Hotu Matua, along with his family and subjects, sailed to the island and came ashore at Anakena Beach, christening the new land Tepito o Tehenua, the navel of the world. On this far-flung shore, the Polynesian settlers gradually built a complex society. Hotu Matua became the first Ariki Mau, sacred king of the island, and his descendants continued that ruling line. Over time, the community divided into several clans, Mata, each led by its own chief, yet all acknowledged the supreme authority of the Ariki. Through the following centuries, Rapa Nui experienced a golden age in which it left an indelible mark on history through its unique creations. The most stunning achievement of Rapa Nui culture is embodied in the giant Moai. Between approximately the 13th and 17th centuries, the islanders carved nearly 1,000 monolithic statues from volcanic tuff directly in the rock walls of the Rano Raraku crater. Then, through titanic effort, they transported and erected them on ceremonial stone platforms called ahu along the coast. Some statues reach over 10 meters, 33 feet, tall, and weigh around 80 tons. Typically, the Moai stand with their backs to the sea, facing inland as if watching over the villages. Many wear atop their heads reddish cylindrical stones, pukao, possibly representing hair topknots or ceremonial crowns. Most importantly, the Moai symbolize the deified ancestors of each clan, endowed with mana, the sacred force that protected and blessed the community. The transport and erection of these colossal figures remain a source of wonder. According to legend, the Moai walked themselves to their destinations, imbued with supernatural power by the priests. Amazingly, modern experiments have shown that dozens of people using ropes can indeed move an upright statue by rocking it from side to side, in effect confirming the ancient local tradition. The spiritual life of Rapa Nui was rich and captivating, populated by gods, heroes, and venerated ancestors. Even the coming of Hotu Matua and the colonization of the island are described in mythic terms. Tradition holds that the 7 scouts sent ahead were immortalized in stone. The 7 Moai at Ahu Akivi, uniquely facing the sea, are said to represent those legendary emissaries. In local belief, the world was created by the supreme god, Make. He fashioned the sky and the earth, and then, desiring a being like himself, molded the first man from the island's clay and gave him life, later creating the first woman from the man's rib to be his companion. Make remained the protective deity of the people, and his symbol, the figure of a man with a bird's head, appears in numerous petroglyphs on Rapa Nui's rocks. Another legend, recounted with a shiver, explains the end of an era. The war between the Hanau Eepe and the Hanau Momoko, the long ears and the short ears. According to myth, after a time of harmony, a fierce conflict erupted between these two groups. The Hanau Eepe, being fewer, dug a deep ditch at Poike and filled it with wood, planning to burn their enemies in this giant oven. But the stratagem backfired. The Hanau Momoko found a way around the ditch, attacked from the rear, and pushed the long ears into their own blaze. It's said that nearly the entire Hanau Eepe people perished in the flames, with only one survivor escaping alive. This dramatic tale, set, according to tradition, in the late 17th century, symbolically marked the end of the statue-building era and the downfall of the old order. Despite its isolation, the Rapa Nui civilization demonstrated remarkable adaptability and ingenuity. The first settlers brought plants and domesticated animals from Hiva, such as sweet potatoes, taro, banana trees, and chickens, thus establishing the basis of agriculture on the island. Confronted with thin soil and strong winds, they developed ingenious stone gardens. Agricultural plots were covered with crushed volcanic rock and bordered by circular stone walls, manavai, to retain moisture and warmth, protecting crops from the harsh elements. This technique allowed them to reap ample harvests in difficult conditions. Rapa Nui villages consisted of long, canoe-shaped houses with thatched roofs, built on oval stone foundations, har painga, resembling overturned boats. The modest interior of these huts was used mainly for sleeping, while many activities took place under the open sky. Villagers cooked in underground stone ovens, umu, and their diet relied on the crops they grew, enriched by fish and seafood from the ocean and the meat of domesticated birds. Even though the island lacks extensive reefs, bold fishermen ventured into the open sea for tuna and other fish, and domestic chickens provided protein when needed. Despite limited resources, art and knowledge flourished. The Rapa Nui carved not only the grand Moai, but also crafted exquisite wooden figures, and they etched thousands of petroglyphs into the island's rocks, depicting sacred birds, ancestors, and cosmological motifs. They also developed a mysterious system of carved glyphs called Rongorongo, a script unique to the Pacific, which remains undeciphered to this day. Recently dated fragments suggest these glyphs existed by the 15th century, before any European set foot on the island. Rongorongo endures as one of Rapa Nui's great enigmas, a potential testament to their intellectual originality. Island society tightly intertwined religion with political organization. Traditionally, power was inherited along Hotu Matua's royal lineage, but in hard times the Rapa Nui reinvented how they chose their leaders. Thus arose the Tangata Manu competition, the cult of the Birdman. Once a year, champions from the clans would compete in a perilous race of swimming and climbing to retrieve the first egg of the Manu Tara bird from a remote islet. The winner bestowed upon his clan chief the title of Birdman, regarded as a sacred leader under the protection of Make. This spectacular ritual kept the community's hope alive and transformed the struggle for power into a symbolic contest, avoiding bloody conflict. Just as fascinating as Rapa Nui's rise is its fall. Over time, various explanations have emerged, some scientific, others more mythic. One popular theory argues that the island society self-destructed ecologically. In this view, the inhabitants mercilessly cut down the island's palm forests to obtain wood for fuel, canoes, and perhaps sledges or rollers to transport the giant statues, and to expand their agricultural land. Over the centuries, the island allegedly lost all its trees. The soil became barren and could no longer support the growing population. As a result, famine and internal warfare might have decimated the community even before Europeans arrived in 1722. When the first Western explorers landed, they supposedly found only the remnants of a once great society. Many statues fallen and a drastically reduced population. A scene of collapse that seemed to confirm the legend of a paradise lost. More recent research, however, offers a more nuanced narrative. Evidence suggests that Rapa Nui was still thriving when Europeans first made contact. Radiocarbon dating of Ahu platforms shows that statue construction continued at least until around 1750, well beyond the time of the purported ecological collapse. Furthermore, early Dutch and Spanish accounts in the 18th century describe active rituals and a people still hardy, contradicting the notion of an already moribund society. This perspective implies that the true collapse happened with outside interference. In the decades after 1722, Rapa Nui was devastated by epidemics brought by foreigners, by slave raids, notably the Peruvian incursions of 1862 to 1863, and by colonization. These forces reduced the population to just 111 individuals by 1877, nearly erasing the Rapa Nui people. Thus, it was not so much an internal ecocide as the shock of external contact that sealed the civilization's fate. A closer examination shows that environmental changes did play a role, but not necessarily due to human ignorance. The Polynesian rat, inadvertently introduced by the first settlers, proliferated and prevented the forest from regenerating by eating palm seeds. Even without extensive deforestation, the island's trees might have vanished over time. Despite that, the islanders demonstrated remarkable adaptability. They continued agriculture in sustainable ways and instituted social innovations, like the Birdman ritual, to maintain stability as resources dwindled. Their centuries-long cultural resilience suggests that Rapa Nui's story is not just a grim warning, but also a lesson in perseverance and ingenuity in isolation. Today, Rapa Nui stands before us as a living museum under the open sky. Much of the island is strewn with relics, ancient platforms, majestic statues arrayed along the coasts, abandoned villages, all silent testaments to a vanished civilization. Yet the spirit of Rapa Nui survives. Thousands of people live on the island now, many of them descendants of the old clans, still speaking the Rapa Nui language and keeping ancestral traditions alive. The mystery and allure of the place continue to draw people from everywhere. New discoveries are still being made. Recently, a previously unknown Moai was found buried in the bed of a dried-up lake, proof that this land has more secrets yet to reveal. Rapa Nui remains a fascinating land, a small, isolated society that nonetheless left behind a colossal cultural legacy. Its story both inspires and warns us about human ingenuity, the fragility of resources, and the power of legends to endure through the ages. We conclude this journey with hearts still echoing with the grandeur and mystery of Rapa Nui, a lost world that refuses to be forgotten.